Good morning, everybody. I can see people are zooming in quite fast.
Morning, Cecily.
Morning, Cecily.
Good morning to you all.
Good morning, Cecily.
Good morning, Cecily.
Morning, everybody.
Morning,
Good morning, James.
How are you all?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning,
Good morning.
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 Good morning.
Right. It appears, it seems we are a good number to start. So we will get going. But I'll start by saying thank you so much for considering to be part of this conversation. We know that, this is International Zero Tolerance Day we are talking about here. And although it happened on Saturday, gone, we still felt as a community, we need to keep the conversation going. For the last couple of years, this has been a quite important subject for us because every voice counts. So in as much as a lot has not been talked about nationally this year because of the circumstances we are in with the COVID, we felt that this was necessary. Our hashtag has always been around ending FGM in a generation, okay? So to see you all here within 3 minutes, it shows how important this conversation is. So let's see what we get on or how we get on in the next hour and a half. So to start us off, or to help us generate those conversations, I will ask Stella to share the post with us, just to gauge where we are led in as far as our awareness is concerned. So Stella, over to you. And I also encourage you, as a custom for the Zoom, please, if you're not contributing, ensure that you mute yourself to avoid the background noises that come along with that. So Stella, over to you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Stella.
Good morning. Good morning. It's nice to see a great number of you this morning. Lovely as always. Apologies, I think my thing is cutting out a little bit, but it's great to, and I've got a little bit of a cold, so bear with me. But I hope everyone is well and blessed and had a great week so far, almost the weekend, can't wait. But yeah, so today, as Cecily has mentioned, and more for those of you who have just joined in and not too aware of what the topic for today is, it's FGM awareness. And so we're just, again, going to kind of gauge where everyone is at, like we usually do for those who are joining us for the first time. So what we do, we just take a quick poll just to kind of, see how everyone's feeling, see kind of where everyone is about the topic, and kind of get a discussion going. For time purpose, we might just take 3 people after we share the poll results, their opinions, just for time purposes. But yes, I'm just going to share the poll with you all. Just 3 questions. Please do let me know if you can see them. There we go. Oh, 2 questions, beg your pardon. Can everyone see those? Yeah, can everyone
Not
see?
yet.
Not yet. No,
I don't see anything.
And now?
Yep, you can see it now.
Perfect, great. So I'm just gonna give everyone maybe a minute and a half or so. So the first question is, how well are you aware of the female genital mutilation? So it's very well, fairly well, or not well. And the second question, if you are aware of female genital mutilation, how much do you advocate for the practice? 100%, 50%, or 0%? 0%. Kind of
Stella, when you said, you mean, when you say for, do you mean against the practice?
No, support.
You support?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be
You mean,
interesting.
do we support it or we advocate it to go against it? Which of the two?
It's,
And
And
that, I think
for
that
the
would be,
practice to carry on.
yeah.
oh no, sending the wrong answer.
Oh,
yeah.
Does anyone should we does anyone want me to relaunch it so we can change
Yes,
answers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
okay. Let me relaunch it. So sorry for the confusion. Okay. Let's do that again, shall we? So relaunch. Perfect. There we go. Has everyone seen it?
Yeah.
Perfect. There we go. So just to clarify for the second question, it do you support the practice or do you support not support, but is the advocate for the practice of FGM? It'd be quite interesting topic actually for myself. I know I'm not well educated in this topic, so it'd be interesting to kind of get a lot more insight into it. And for those of you who kind of feel the same way or kind of share your almost done. I'm gonna give you maybe 30 more seconds and then we'll share the results, just create a conversation. Yeah, was everyone happy for me to end the poll?
I mean, yes.
Okay, perfect. Right, now I've just shared the results. Can everyone see those? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first question, how well are you aware of female genital mutilation? The 54% of you said 90% well. 38% of you said fairly well. 8% said not well. I probably would have fallen under there. And the second question, if you are aware of female genital mutilation, how much do you advocate for the practice? 4% said 100%, 8% of you said 50%, and 88% of you said 0%. Interesting.
4 questions.
Okay. Does anybody want to share their thoughts on both the poll results and just female genital mutilation in general? That would be great. I guess we can kind of just start with what female genital mutilation
In
means.
other words, what are your views on the outcome of the polls?
Ladies first.
Go for it.
I think the results are quite interesting. Maybe they do reflect where we are at the moment and where we have come from, because from my understanding, in some societies, it was the norm, it was practice, that was the culture. And now we are moving away from that with more education and more understanding of how we sort of want to, for want of a better word, to be more pleasurable to the male species than to the female species. So I think that the underlying cause of most of the female genital mutilation is because females were suppressed or oppressed. So, and I am quite passionate about this topic, and thank you very much for bringing it forward. So maybe let's hear. Yeah, that is my contribution for the minute.
Okay, thank you, Sister Gray. That's a good contribution to get things started. So essentially what we're saying is due to culture is there's been a change of the thoughts of genital mutilation and its benefits. Is that kind of what I'm saying, or anyone want to kind of jump in? Yes, Anthony.
Yes. If I
Oh,
may
yes,
come
James.
in from a man's perspective. Sorry, Stella. Thank
men's
you
are
for the
ready now.
pause. Yes. It's really true from the lady that made that comment is right. I think this is what I call the inner conflict that we have. And if you look at the source of the pool, Stella, maybe those people within that 38% in terms of knowledge, or also in terms of the fact that we're not quite aware of it, you might perhaps suggest that there are people who have experienced it, and that there's a whole lot of issues around the hidden reason why it was done, whether it was forced on people or it became a tradition that's been handed over to people. So it's so difficult really not to begin to check into your traditional belief that you have. It's only when we talk about it more openly, like now, we begin to educate people, like you said, Stella, that maybe this will be an opportunity for even yourself to learn about it. This is something that's been going on for quite a long time, and you name it, how long. And we're just still trying to make sure that we stop it, or it stopped, And if you look at the second poll where people were talking about 88% that they want to stop, there are still some elements, people who don't even know, what to do, what to say about it, because of the hidden conflict is really internal conflict, because it's like you are working against your own culture. But these are traditions that perhaps we need to look at whether they are good or not for us to eradicate. So that's my comment, really, in terms of my insight as a man.
Yes, Anthony. Thank you, James, for that input. Yes, Anthony. So you've got.
Yeah, according to the pool, like some of us, we said that we are aware of it and we want at least contribution. Helping out there is like 50-50, because you see, if you look at my background, I work with a lot of girls, and some of these ladies, we actually have conversation about this. Some of them over there, they might have gone through the practice, and some of them they have not gone through. Recently, when Cecilia and myself, we started making this discussion, I was lucky to ask one of those girls that she's actually working with me. I asked her about these issues. She's somebody, she already has a child. And before she has a child, she has never been go through the Fgm. And then later she decided to do it. Then I asked her, do they force you? She said, no. I said, how do you manage to get there at this age when you have already grown up? She said she was persuaded by one of her friends. Then I asked her, you as a woman, your life now, like for example, your sexual activities and whatsoever, before Fgm and after Fgm, how do you feel? Then she told me and said, if she had known, she wouldn't have done what she did to herself. So, mostly Cecilia and myself, we really have a conversation. The traditions is there. And people say, yes, we should end the tradition, but beneath that tradition, there are something that is holding people. Some people, they walk right into it. Some people are forced. So until we actually have a broader education, we teach the people, or like the people really understand why they are doing this and why they are not doing this. If we actually take the pressure from outside force for this thing to stop, it will go underground. So that's what I just want to contribute at this early stage. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you, Anthony. I know it's something, like you mentioned, a lot of it's a practice that a lot of women experience, especially back home. Something very cultural as well. So thank you for that input. Victor, yes, I see you've got your hand raised.
It's just this question of culture and tradition. that tends to come up whenever, you know, you're discussing topics, sensitive topics like FGM. It's culture and tradition. What is not said is, where did this culture and tradition come from? How is it so widespread? You know, it doesn't, you would think that a culture and tradition would be unique to a particular community, society. But this thing is widespread, covers, you know, well over 300 million people. If what am I talking about? Nearly 500 million people, if you count Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Pakistan, the Middle East, and Africa, and even parts of South America. So my first pushback, which nobody has quite explained to me, is if we are saying it's our culture and tradition, whose culture and tradition is it? Where did it come from? When did it start? Why have we taken it on? And also, the second aspect to it is, we all know that it is it's disastrous. It's done for a particular purpose. You know, it's done at the, you know, carried on by women, but it's done at the behest of men for their selfish ends. And it's dangerous. We know that it is. Women have died. Women, you know, either there where they're being caught or in childbirth. So if it's that disastrous, even one life is one life worth a culture to maintain a culture and tradition. Would any of us, you know, and this is a question I ask the men, well, what if, you know, women introduce a tradition to say, well, we would castrate you to dampen your sexual appetite? How would you feel? Would you accept it? So why are we supporting this? That's my, it just always makes my blood boil when we talk about FGM. You know, it shouldn't be. We're now a lot more educated to know that it has disastrous physical, mental, and socio-economic, you know, impact on the women. Women go, you know, who've undergone FGM, particularly type 3. And Louise is here to talk to us about her maternity project. You know, suffer in childbirth. They need to be opened up. They suffer from fistula. They, you know, a backache. You know, please let's try and take the argument to the next level. You know, let's take it to the next level. Culture and traditional argument does not hold, because none of us can pinpoint where it comes from. And as such, we should be looking forward. And because it's having such a negative impact, I think we should be moving towards, how can we stop it? What can we do to stop it? Sorry for my rant.
No, thank you. That's what we need. we need that input. Thank you, Victor, for that. You're right. It's something that I'm seeing a couple of hand claps in the comment section. Yeah, it is something that we definitely need to steer away from supporting. Like you said, it's something that negatively affects women, something that we shouldn't be supporting. So thank you for that input. I see, sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, Hadiatu?
I think this female genital mutilation, from my own culture, from the region I'm from, Sierra Leone, it's sort of thing that contributes to patriarchal society, differentiating the different roles between men and women. Because when you go into the Bondo bush, they will teach you some kind of domestic work, still showing your predominant role within the society and how you need to be obedient for the man, those kind of subordinating qualities.
Interesting. So it's almost, yes. So in a sense, I think the auntie at the beginning and Sister Grace mentioned that it's almost makes women, I don't know, separates. I don't know if someone can jump in and try and try and help me out in explaining, but like you said, it's something that pleasures men than it does, not even pleasures men, but something for men, but damages women, like you said.
Actually, what? Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry, go on, continue, please.
Okay, actually, what I'm trying to say here, in the bush, they will teach you some kind of qualities of women, how to cook, how to do laundry. Okay, if you look at that, just after the female genital mutilation, after the entire process in our society, that was the time our parents do believe that you are fully ready for marriage. So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to explain, is something that contributes to patriarchal society.
That's very true.
Can I come in a bit?
So, and dear, to thank you for that contribution, Lily, because you're joining in from Sierra Leone, where we know, the practice. So you're giving the Leo experience and the purpose for it. So yeah, we'll be waiting or looking forward to hearing more from you as we go along.
I think Auntie Esther had her hand up before, and then Anthony, yes, you can jump in after. That's okay.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to echo what the elder speakers have said. FGM is rampantly practiced in many communities in many countries. And as the previous speakers have said, the reason why FGM has been practiced, accepted for so long is because of the traditions, because of the culture, reducing the sexual pleasures of a woman, making her being obedient and all that. And I just want to say that we've held conferences on FGM, but one thing that I just want to appreciate about today is FGM awareness, because many a times it's a taboo to some and many societies to talk about FGM. That is a private issue. That is something that does not need to be discussed in the public. And hence why this FGM has continued from one generation to another without really analyzing what are the negative impacts. And as Victor said, there are lots of negative impacts on the FGM. And so what are we talking about today? We are calling for change to FGM practice. It needs to end and end now, because it doesn't have any good benefits why it should be practiced. Instead, it is even causing people's lives. And so this awareness is just to say, let's talk about FGM. It's not a taboo to talk about FGM. Let's end it, because from the polls, we are not advocating against FGM enough. We are not just being the voice for those less privileged in the communities, the less vulnerable in the communities, who cannot even just talk on their behalf. So we need to talk more, we need to shout for this practice to be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Esther, for that contribution. So we take Anthony. Oh, sorry.
I think we'll go up there for the sake of time. We will keep coming back to those polls, but to salvage time, we'll move on to the next part of it. But really, in summary of the polls, you can see there, we have 54% who are very much well aware of the practice, but we have 8% not well aware. So it's not 0%, and that is the gap we want to bridge. So why don't we have 100% awareness of the practice? Now, 7-8 years ago, when we started this conversation, it was like wildfire. Everybody embraced it. It was something that almost like something that had not been heard. But with the years, that level of conversations has made the communities more aware of what the practice is. But as you can see, it's only for 54%. 88% is with those who are advocating for the, do not want to advocate for the practice. So we still have the 12%. So, and we are talking of ending it in a generation. want to address the 12%, we will continue having the conversation until we get to that 100%. So thank you for that. For the sake of the 80% who are not aware, we have a short video clip to explain what FGM is. And so time allowing, we will be watching that at some point. But for now, I'm going to bring Ruiz in to tell us more about the maternity program, because we know one of the adverse impacts of FGM is the woman's productive parts, which are affected usually. So Luis, please do come in and enlighten us more on that.
So thank you, Cecily, for that introduction. So yes, I'm here from Reading Maternity Voices Partnership. Thank you, Victor, for inviting me. It's been very informative so far. So just to echo what people have said here, the FGM process and effects of it do affect women in childbirth, that is known. I'm not a midwife. I'm working very closely with a midwife at the RBH on an equalities project, which I hope this meeting will feed into. And we are driving and hoping to drive change within the equality that we see in maternity services locally, and hopefully to feed that out nationally. So I'm here today to listen to you all and to kind of gather contacts, as it were. And what Reading Maternity Voices do is listen to experiences of women, and with those experiences, we hope to drive change. I'm really passionate that all voices matter, and I can see that just from what we've heard here, that everybody kind of shares that passion here. So I'm here to listen, and I'm here to, just highlight the importance. I'm not a midwife, but if Akeisha, my colleague, was here, she would highlight the importance of this FGM issue and the outcomes it has for women and for their children as well. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to learning more. It's been very informative so far.
Thank you so much, Ruiz. The theme for this year is no time for inaction. And actually for you taking time to be here is a step towards, taking that action so that we are all speaking from the same point. And that is how change will come by.
Communities working together, which, fantastic.
Good, thank you. Please do come more, because we need to hear the narratives, and I think that is what will make the difference. So we really appreciate your time here.
Thank you.
So at that point then, let me share the short video clip so that we understand what this FGM is and the impact that it has on us. As I prepare that, please get on with the conversation and give me a minute or two.
What exactly is FGM? FGM is the non-medical practice that intentionally removes female genital organs.
Can you see that at all?
No.
Can I check whether you can see that?
No,
we can hear, but the screen is blank, Cecily.
The screen is blank, okay. I'll stop sharing and then share it again. So let me see whether you can see that now.
Often.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
What exactly is FGM? FGM is the non-medical practice that intentionally removes female genital organs. Often, girls are cut when they are still very young, in some cases under the age of 5. FGM is practiced all over the world, but is predominant in 30 countries. In some of those countries, high prevalence rates means that nearly all girls still experience FGM. There are 4 types of FGM. Type 1, clitoridectomy, meaning removal of the clitoris. Type 2, excision, meaning removal of the clitoris and the labia. Type 3, infibulation, meaning a narrowing of the vaginal opening, sometimes through stitching. Type 4, all other harmful procedures not covered by the first 3, including pricking, stretching, scraping, or even using acid to mutilate parts of the genitalia. Once more for everyone in the back, it is non-medical and has 0 health benefits, but it can cause a lot of other things. Severe bleeding, complications in childbirth, problems urinating, problems menstruating, problems having sex, mental health issues, shock, death. More than 200 million women have undergone female genital mutilation, FGM, with 3 million more at risk every single year. FGM is violence against women and girls, child abuse, sexual assault. Often it's about controlling female sexuality, a tradition to prepare a woman for marriage, allegedly to purify them for their husbands. Sometimes it's done to girls because it was done to their mothers, as a rite of passage or a coming-of-age ritual, or even without much of an explanation at all. It's a cycle of social pressure that's hard to shake, but not impossible. Actually, many people in these countries want the practice to end forever. And though it is often shrouded in, many survivors told Global Citizen they wanted to talk about the reality of FGM so that they can help end it altogether. We should probably mention too, FGM is not a religious exercise. It happens in Christian, Muslim, and Jewish communities, but there is nothing in any of their holy books that teaches it. Basically, FGM is violence against girls. So how can we end FGM forever? Education, teaching doctors and teachers what signs to look for and how to respond sensitively. Cultural intervention, survivors telling their stories to their own communities. Laws and policies, enforcing consequences when FGM is carried out and making policy changes that further deter the practice. The time to end FGM is now. Just head to globalcitizen.org/FGM Among Us to find.
So there we go. So I hope the 54% has gone up to almost 70%, so that by the time we end this session, we'll have gone to 98% awareness, if nothing more. So any comments on that clip, please, before we move on? If, okay, all right. Hadiatu, yeah, come in.
Basically, based on the video, it's just reflected me in a story. I used to have a friend who actually have experienced the female genital mutilation. She was cut, and not only cut, she was also stitched, just so to prevent her from having sexual intercourse. So you see, just after those moments, those years, the father even didn't aware of what the mother has done to her. 3 days before her marriage, the mother took her back to the traditionality in the women to just undo that stitch for her to finally have sexual intercourse. She was a virgin, and when she was virginated, she happened to experience a lot of bleeding, a lot of complications along the way. So that's actually the contribution I was about to make.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diatru. So it's not just what we have actually watched there, it's also what is happening on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, the trauma that comes with that, the bleeding, you know, the painful childbirth. And, you know, it all counts it answers the reasons as to why we have to keep this conversation going. If we can save a woman out there, we will have done the job and done it well. So thank you for that, Idiati. It's not just what we have watched, but what is happening on the ground. Auntie, I see your hand up. Auntie Sola.
Yes, please. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Auntie Sola. I came in from Afrik. We just even heard about this, and it's such a pleasure to be here and to see what's going on about this movement. I just want to share briefly my experience. I'm from Nigeria. I just got into the UK in January for my master's in social work with the University of Essex. So we're on placement with Afrik. My daughter, she's 15 now. She's going to be 16 in September. My mother-in-law, that's the culture from where I'm from. When you get home from the hospital, usually the mother is made to rest, you know, you've gone through a lot, and then your mother-in-law takes care, or whoever is there. If you don't have a mother-in-law, the oldest female in the family takes care of the baby for you and all that to give you time to recuperate. But I always had this that, you know, whatever you're doing with my child, that was my first child, I should always be aware I'm there. So fortunately for me, the first birth my daughter was having after hospital, my mother-in-law and my mother-in-law's elder sister, they were there, you know. So I just sat with them, watching what they were doing and observing. And my mother-in-law, because she had all boys, so she didn't, you know, really understand what it is about, you know, this genital mutilation and all that. So she saw her sister and said, oh, I have only boys, but you had girls. What are we to do? You know, and I didn't interrupt that conversation because I wanted to hear what they had to say. And then the other one said, they've told us now that we shouldn't cut it, but there's still something to do. And that was the first time I was going to hear that. You know, so that's why I was happy when I saw that the focus of the video is not just on the mutilation, other things also happen, you know, outside of the cutting. So the elder sister said she's going to use her big thumb and press down or press in my daughter's clitoris to make it disappear somehow, to shorten it, you know, so that every time they're bathing her, they should do that and keep pressing it. So it won't grow, it won't come out so much. And then that would, substitute for not being able to cut it. So I cut in there and I said, oh, please don't do that because I don't understand what it's like, how they started and everything, you know. So, and then that got me talking with all my other friends. I'm like, okay, are you guys aware that this is happening? And they're like, okay, if you're a new mother and someone is taking care of your baby, be there to work with, you know. So that's, I'm just sharing that to let us know that a lot of them that even know. One, okay, so later after that conversation, I asked my mother-in-law's elder sister that they told you to cut it. Do you know why they said you should stop cutting it? She said, no, it's just civilization. It's just the way they come and they remove everything that we do and believe in and all that, you know. So it was, the depth of understanding wasn't there. So we had that conversation and everything. So I started sharing with all my other friends, like, look out for this. These people feel like, you know, you're curbing them, you're depriving them of another thing that they believe in culturally, but they don't really have an understanding of why, you know, you're stopping them. And so they're finding other means to achieve this without really going against what you said, you know, they shouldn't do and all that kind of thing, you know. So that's just, I just wanted to share that experience. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic, Kande. And that is so, so important and timely because it was just yesterday. I had a conversation with Shalom, whom I know is in the call now, about this family, or a question that was raised about this family who wanted to do FGM on their daughter because they thought or they feared she was turning to be a lesbian. And so for them, by thinking of cutting her was to stop her, you know, getting sexually active at the long time. So for you to talk about the other measures or the other actions that are taken to meet the same goal is very important to know that it happens, and it is happening in our communities right now. So thank you for that. And I see Esther's hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say what Ade has just said. From the video, FGM is done on small children, young children, who are very vulnerable, who are very, who have no voice. And hence the reason why we need to advocate and stand and be the voice for them. Because as Adia said, she has just come from a hospital. The young girl is just so innocent, not able to protect herself. And somebody somewhere in a little corner is planning and scheming on how to do FGM on this little child. All I want to say is, FGM is rampant, and because it's done on these young ones who cannot raise their voices, we need to talk more and be their voice in our communities and look for other ways to minimize FGM, because even your own family members, they are actually busy planning for this FGM on our children.
Wow, thank you, Esther, for that. Clearly, there is no time for inaction. Yeah, and by you signing up to this, it shows that you are being part of that campaign. Taking actions once ending it. So I want to bring in Lillian. Lillian has been a great champion for fighting against FGM over the years. Great champion. And really for Lillian to be here, I would say is a great honor and a sign of commitment, because as we speak, she is grieving the loss of her uncle. So our condolences to you, Lillian, first of all, and please do come in and share with us what your experience has been in terms of pushing for the campaign.
Thank you so much, Cecily. Yeah, I've got a message from my little girl. She's 7 years old and she has been studying, and then I'm listening here. I didn't know that she's paying attention. So she heard the word FGM and she asked me, what is FGM? So I tried to explain to her what is it. And she was like, oh my God. You know, mommy, you need to put this in Instagram, in Facebook, in YouTube, so everyone could see that this is bad thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she asked me a very interesting question. She said, mommy, do you have to pay for your child to undergo such a thing? And I said yes, because back home when they did me when I was 2 years old, and when they did to my little sister, I remember my mom, of course, when I was 2, I didn't know what happened, but during the time when I saw my little sister, they did it to her, they paid. So I told her, yeah, they do pay so that their daughter can be, can undergo such a thing. And she said, I think, mommy, you should tell people not to waste their money for something that is so horrible. And I realized, she's just 7 years, and then she's saying these things, and I'm like, so we can even, try to educate the kids. And she finished by telling me, mommy, I will never have a FGM no matter what, even if I die. So I thought, what, I should just share this message that we need as well to reach to our children, to not only to teach the parents, but also to speak. I know it can be so big to them, but I didn't know just 7 years old, you can ask such, questions, and like she's demanding, answers. So yeah, I think we should really keep on. And I know that it's never easy to go against the norms, the traditions that is like we are going against it. It's not easy, but we're gonna have to keep on fighting, because it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. And I think someone was, I don't remember who, yeah, I would say one of the reasons that they normally say that is doing that, cutting a women, they say that it is one of the reasons to give pleasure to men. But I realized to me it's different experience. Me and my husband, the way I don't feel doing it, it affects my husband as well. So I don't know where they get this, saying that we get more pleasure, when we have women who have been cut. And I think that's really, really, they are getting it wrong. They are getting it very wrong. It's a horrible thing. It causes so much pain. It causes so much, it's like for my experience, I feel like they have taken all my, let's say, pleasure, because when I speak to other women, when they're telling me their experience when, you know, they are, you know, having sex, the way they tell you that they can't even stay, like, let's say for 1 week without doing it, I'm like, for me, I can even stay for years. I don't feel anything. So they have taken all that pleasure for innocent children. And I think it should be stopped because it's no good. It's not a good thing. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Wow, Lillian. You know, that is so powerful. When we talk of ending it in a generation, it is exactly that. You have evidence of that. You know, for you, it is stopped with you. Yeah, your children, your daughters will never have to go through that. And that is a whole generation saved. So thank you for really making yourself vulnerable to share that. Because sometimes when we talk about this, when we have these conversations, we think it's things that happens elsewhere, but not among ourselves. So really, we have to be that change that we seek by taking ourselves out there and sharing or having those conversations. And that is the education that we are talking about, Lillian, for that. And I want to bring Hua in, but I can see a few hands up. Yes, now, Ruiz, I know you have a burning question because of what you're doing with the maternity project. So come in, and then Grace will come in.
I just wanted to come in very quickly and just thank Lillian for that contribution. Really inspiring, just that communication with her little girl. You know, as a mother myself with a 5-year-old, just the education, the communication, I think it's so important. And I think it's inspired me just as a person and as a human being. I should perhaps be having those conversations with my children, because education is the way to end this. So thank you, Lillian. I just wanted to say it was very inspiring.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lillian. And Lillian has been one person who goes out to the universities and colleges to really give that education. So, Ruiz, if you need that education passed on to your staff, please, the communities are here. And Grace, over to you.
Oh, yes. So I was just thinking that on the video clip, they did mention different types of FGM. And I think maybe the other one that's very salient is the one of pulling or stretching, because it's not that obvious. We don't see it, but children can be sent to the rivers to have that done when they are still very young, before they reach puberty. And I remember when I was at boarding school, you know, we used to have girls competing under their blankets to say who is doing what with whatever. But some of us, because we were not aware of that, we always thought it was a funny procedure to be done. So it's something that can be done. And I also understand that some people, when they get married, the husband can then say no. If the labia are not long enough, they can say no, this child is not well prepared, send her back to her home. So again, it's the male or the boys or the men have to have discussions as well to educate them to say this is not right.
Wonderful. Yes. No time for inaction. So thank you, Grace, for sharing that. Thank you. At this point, I'll bring Ua in, who is from the Oxford Against Cutting, who for a number of years have been giving women that practical support to ensure that they claim back or they get back their womanhood in different ways. So Ua, thank you. Please come in and share with us.
Okay. Hi, Cecily. Thank you.
Hello there. Mm-hmm.
So my name is Hawa, and I work with Oxford Against Cutting, and our organization works to end harmful cultural practices across the Thames Valley area. So female genital mutilation, forced marriage, honor-based abuse, etc. So I think it's quite interesting that we had a whole conversation regarding culture and how when we start to talk about FGM, then there's that thing about, especially in Africa, I'm originally from Nigeria, where we think, oh, that's one more thing that the West is trying to strip us from. So the more you try to get people to stop it, the harder they hold on to it. But what I've realized while working on FGM is that when you think of FGM as an abuse, which clearly it is, then it empowers you to be able to do something. But when you think about it as, oh, it's a culture, you know, then that is when cultural sensitivity might step in, and you might think, oh, you know what, perhaps because I'm not a survivor or I'm not from a practicing community, I don't feel comfortable talking about this, you know? So when we think about it as abuse, it empowers us to try and stop it. And I always say to people who think about it as culture, that culture is ever evolving. There's never been one culture that has been there for like from the beginning of time and is still there. It can always change. There are a lot of harmful cultural practices and traditions that we used to do. You know, for example, femicide, they used to kill girls, and they used to kill twins, you know, because there's this belief that they bring bad luck. But now, could you imagine somebody going on Instagram saying, oh, I have these twins and I'm going to murder them because they're going to bring bad luck to my family? It is such a taboo. So if we've managed to rid ourselves of a lot of harmful traditional practices, why not FGM? When you think about the pain, a lot of survivors will tell you that FGM is pain for life, you know? It's mutilation, it goes against everything that you could possibly think of. And it is interesting to note that FGM predates all religions, all of them. It is traced back to a pharaonic practice. So in the time of Pharaoh, that's when they used to do it, you know? So we can't even stand up and beat our chest and say, oh, this is part of my culture and you can't take this away from me. Why don't you change that culture if it is such? You know, and a lot of times these things that are so private in a lot of communities, I'm happy, Cicely, that we have this platform. We're talking, and I can see a lot of men, and we're talking about FGM, because in a lot of communities who practice it, it is never spoken about. And that's why it has gone on for a long time. You try to educate people and you're appalled at the number of people who are shocked that something like this goes on. And you'd be surprised that men, when they do come into the Rose Clinic, that is the clinic in Oxford that is dedicated to helping women who have been through FGM, you know, if the men do come with them in for therapy, some of them break down in tears when it is explained to them that this is what has been done, because that is the normal for them, you know. They had their wives infibulated. They don't know anything apart from that. So if we're saying that this whole practice is done to preserve virginity and chastity, and why do we do that? So that men, we make sure that men marry chaste girls, then why are we not talking to men about it, you know? FGM is done in a very private place. So why is my private place such a matter for public concern? You know, we sit down everywhere, all over the world. I'm not just saying FGM, in all communities, you have it in different forms of trying to control girl sexuality, you know? If you say, oh, we're doing it to preserve virginity, why are you now the person that gets to decide who should stay chaste and not? It's nobody's responsibility, you know? As long as we think that we have ownership over women's bodies and somebody else gets to decide what would be done, we would never have an end to this conversation. And now we have these platforms, we have social media, and one of the good things that has come out of this lockdown is that we have a lot of communication. And see how Lillian, we're speaking to, sorry, not Lillian, I think Hajia or someone from Sierra Leone, you know, we're talking to someone so far away from the other side of the world. So this brings us together, and because they share their own perspectives of FGM and how it's been done in their communities, like in Sierra Leone with the Bondo culture, where it's seen as, you know, it's something empowering for women and something to be proud of. The more we understand the reasons why FGM is done, the more we would begin to tackle the issues at the grassroots level through having simple conversations like this and signposting people. So I think I've said more than enough, Cicely. Thank you for this wonderful platform, the wonderful work that you are doing. And thank you to everyone for being a part of this much, much needed conversation, especially in lockdown, when every form of abuse that we could think of has gone up. Only God knows how much FGM is going on behind closed doors, and we're not aware. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Hawa. And really, Oxford Against Cutting has been a great champion to this work. You've worked with men, the weekly or the monthly seminars that you learn goes a long way in educating our communities. So please leave your contacts there, Hawa, because I'm sure we will need it as we go along. And perhaps we can continue, the conversation going with regards to the education that we need. So at this point, I'll bring Victor in. Victor, please bring in your comments. And Anthony, be ready to share with us what you have been doing out there.
Yeah, it's just a quick comment on this culture argument. When I was growing up in Sierra Leone, I was told if I talked about FGM, I would die. I have been talking about it for the last 9 years and I'm still here and I will continue to. It's all a sham, for goodness sakes. How are you right? We're a lot more enlightened now and we need to ditch some of our harmful practices. And I recall an example that I usually give when I'm giving talks on FGM is that when I was growing up, you would hardly come across a child who's with Down syndrome. The parents saw such children as not being a value to the family, and they bring bad luck to the society. So they kind of passed off at birth or when they're very young. Up to the age of 30, I only knew of one person who was Down syndrome, and that was alive and had grown to adulthood. There were none. But with education, with proper education and explanation and going into the communities, going back now, I see them. Why have we stopped that? And why haven't we stopped FGM? So we just, those of us that are in the light need to shed that light into our communities. And when I go, I always pick a fight with my family about FGM. I always do it because I know that is what it takes to make that change. Challenging them, explaining to them. And some of these are people who are well educated. So I say they're literate, they're not educated as far as FGM goes. And they need to be educated. They need to be educated because you need those ambassadors to go into the villages to be able to say, no, this is not right. It has to stop.
Oh, Victor, thank you so much for remaining such a great champion, not just here, but also back home. And definitely that you can't be popular for that, but you know what you're doing, you're convinced what you're doing is the right thing. It has to end in a generation. So thank you for that. So Anthony.
And yes, again, I'm back here. Thank you so much, Cicely. Like behind the scene, you and I, we have been talking about these things for a very long time. And like Victor was saying earlier on, I strongly believe men in our society, like in the Liberian and the Sierra Leonean society, we are ignorant of the practice. I pick up this issue by myself. When I came out, I started reading about these things. I saw like the momentum within the media. That is when I developed interest. Then there was a day I called my girlfriend that I was actually moving out with when I was in Sierra Leone. Then I asked, do you go through FGM? She said, yes, but you never knew. So that's how ignorant I myself I was when I was in the society. Men, we have two different kind of society. We have the poorer society for men and we have the mono society for women. What happened in Rome, it stays, what happened in Vegas, stay in Vegas. So what the women do to girls, we have no hands in that. Over 70% of men, we have no idea about that, what is happening. And sometimes you go out with a lady, she's your wife or she's your girlfriend, you guys sleep, you guys do everything, but you don't even ask her. Some girls over there, I realize this now, we have some African girls, they are really shy for a man to look down there, they hide it. They want for you guys to be out there doing things, everything is in the dark. If you enter a room, they say, switch, turn off the light. Perhaps this is what they were hiding, because some of them, after they go through, they become really ashamed of showing off this thing. I remember, I mean, like, as a young guys, you know, yes, I go out with some girls, you know, but I saw that this kind of thing repeat. They don't want for you to see out there. But women who have never been through those things, they are proud for you to see whatever you want to see on your body. You know, they are really proud of themselves. So Hadiatu over there, you know, Hadiatu Jallo, she's one of those ladies I'm working with in Sierra Leone from Girls' Right Initiative. So we invited her, so at least she will tell us about her experience. So instead of I going there, I'm going to give the responsibility to Hadiatu so that she will tell us something today from Sierra Leone on the ground. Sister Hadiatu, you are welcome to the conversation.
Okay. Hello. I think the major problem here we are missing, especially in Sierra Leone, we get mixed up things. We mix religion with tradition, cultural practices. So in order to fight this, I think our education shouldn't be limited just to tell the people that it is bad to do it. Tell them what the religion says. Tell them that the religion does not participate in short practice. Let them know, because I think that's the confusion around. Because people think that the religion is sort of practice that makes you a complete woman. Without going through that kind of practices, then you are actually defying the religious practices. So I think this is the area we should start, because it's actually a problem, a big problem here.
Like Sister Ayatu, like you are saying, you understand, like you and I, we have been going on through some of these conversations, you know, like you started with experience about other people, you know. Is it from your perspective, is it really that every tribe in Sierra Leone, they are actually actively involved, or is it with a specific kind of people that are actually involved into this thing? Because from our statistics, it's like over 90% or 80% of all Sierra Leonean, they have been through that. And myself, I'm a writer, you know. During the Sierra Leonean Civil War, I discovered that many people were not actually putting their children into the Bono society because of the war. People never have that time. So many of those people, like those who were born in the 90s and like coming towards that time during the Civil War, many of these people who I'm actually working with in my organization, they have not been through the practices. Is it because of the war, or these people, I mean, like, is this the change of generation that we are thinking about? And I think you might find yourself in that particular group I'm talking about.
Actually, based on my experience from different ethnic groups within the country, as a university student, we have dealt with so lots of conversation on that. It depends, because I think it cuts across different ethnic groups, this FGM. For the Mendes in particular, because I have a friend, she explained that it's actually okay for them not to undergo the FGM at an early stage. But for other tribes, even a young baby is being circumcised. A young child with around the month of 8 or 6 months is being circumcised. So for the Mende, it's acceptable, but it will reach at a certain peak that you won't feel that comfortable. You won't live in that kind of comfortable nature that it's okay for me to deserve this, because the society will start pointing fingers around, say, she's uncircumcised. There is always this statement around people saying that uncircumcised women are usually having this kind of odor. So for me, I think it's cut across, depends.
Well, you know, I mean, for the general public, this is one of the reasons why I say, and I always say, you cannot just cut off FGM like that without giving these people the education. Because like at the beginning of the conversation, I started one lady that she's my friend. I'm working with this lady. She went into FGM after she has already had a child. The pressure that Sister Adatu is talking about was that pressure that encouraged the lady to go in that issue after that, and the impact. And she's from this particular tribe that she's talking about, the Mende. The Mende, they have an open policy. They don't force their children in. You already grow up and you are big, you conscious. Society pushes you to make that decision. But like in other tribes, we see that people are really young, innocent. They have no idea about what is happening. So FGM is not just a kind of practice that you can just take away like that, because somebody will be grown up. I mean, they reach the age of consent, and then they go back there and say, I'm going to do it. You can't stop them. In this platform, we are fighting about people who are innocently being introduced or initiated into the practice. But like what you say, and from my own experience, there are adults, people who have already grown, but yet still they carry themselves in that direction. So how can we see what is the cause of this thing? Men, we are not actually involved in the practice. So I think with this kind of platform, we should open a door where men, we ourselves, because we always believe that men are the decision makers, you know. So if we are actually educated and we go out there, we might be able to persuade these women that are going to stop this thing. Some of these people, it is a way of ending. Like, for example, Adeto and myself, we discussed, when a child go into the Bono society, you come out, you become a kind of way of raising money, you know. They shower money on you, you know, and these people that introduce this thing, they're going to gain this money. It is a way of making incomes. If we stop the practice now, just cut it off like that, all these people that will be unemployed, what are we going to give them? We can only solve this thing, whether we call it is a harmful practice or not, is going to go on our ground. Except we educate the people in the right way, they see reason why they should stop. Just like sometimes the missionaries, in those days or else, it's going to be a long discussion we're going to go. So thank you very much. And thank you so much, Sister Aidatu, for your contribution.
Yeah, can I add up to that?
Yeah.
It's so difficult for you to live in a society where people always accuse you of something you actually think that you're not guilty of. Yeah, it's always this kind of perception, this kind of belief that people say that those female that remain uncaught are with high libido, so they are so attractive to their men out there, they will jump out to their husbands, so they refer to them as prostitutes. So how long can you resist living in that kind of society where people won't stop at pointing fingers? So
exactly.
It's kind of a way that just subjugates you for you to undergo that kind of process. It's difficult, actually. It's so difficult.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Idiatu and Anthony there, because really that's real recent case scenarios you are sharing there, that the pressure that there is gets in the way of addressing it. And really education, it may take time, but that education will go a long way in ending this practice. And so as we say, ending it in a generation. Now, I know, Justina, you have been a great champion out there with the Women with Vision. And really nice to see you there. Please, let's hear from you.
I'm still here.
Oh, hi, Cecilia. Thank you so much, my dear. As always, thank you for making a good platform for us to have these conversations over and over again. My contribution is I've known Mr. Koroma, Uncle Victor, I call him, has contributed and talked about culture, and Anthony has talked about war. And these are all continuous conversations we've been having over the years about FGM. Culture-wise, it is a norm now in our cultures. And as Adiatu is rightly saying, the women who are not caught are named and titled in a very ugly way that sometimes that pressure will lead them into their adulthood, making that decision of just going and having FGM done because they don't want to live in that society where they're having fingers pointed at them constantly and being called prostitutes because they're not caught. And as Anthony mentioned, during the war, people managed to stop FGM. They stopped it throughout because of it wasn't safe to go hide kids in the bush, where they don't know when the rebels will arrive and cause disruptions or kill people. And also during the Ebola time as well, in Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia, FGM was completely put on hold. There was no practice of FGM, so we survived during that time. But the sad fact is, after Ebola and our politicians start campaigning to go back into power, they used FGM as a platform for them to gain votes from communities. So they started pouring monies into communities and telling them, we will fund all your FGM programs in this area. And as a result of that, the practice resurrected again. And it's really sad when you've got leaders who are meant to be protecting their people involving in things like this. And these initiators as well, that is their income. That's where they get their money from. So they embrace it. They get their money from these people. And without the right education and tools to be put in place for these people to think, okay, without FGM, we can still survive. So we'll do all the teachings, we'll do all the talking, we'll raise the awareness. Very good. And just rightly, as Lillian's little girl have said, about going to Instagram, going to Facebook, going to Twitter, sending this message across and continue shouting about it, it is going to be really, really difficult because these cultures are so embedded in our societies that trying to root it out without finding another way or replacement of income for these initiators is always going to be a challenge. And as you rightly said, Cicely, myself and all the other women with vision, we're still carrying on the campaign. We're still having these discussions in our own little meetings and in our own ways with our families back home to see how best we can help to eradicate this practice. But it is a fight and it is a battle that we're all going to stay along fighting this battle. And I am so glad that every year in Zero Tolerance Day, we manage to get these platforms where we can talk about this. And it's so, so good and so, so interesting to see our men so involved and so engaged in having these conversations. And rightfully, as Mr. Koroma said earlier, these are not conversations we have normally back home. Oh no, you don't discuss it with the men. They will die. We will end up with swollen stomach or not having kids because of the taboo of you should not say it or you should not mention it. But it is a conversation that needs to continue. And as Lillian said, and our motto is always ending FGM in a generation. As Lillian rightly said, we need to get our kids involved. And I remember last year in Zero Tolerance Day, where we Women with Vision got all our children involved in performing like a play or a role play on the practices of FGM in Sierra Leone. And our little girls learned a lot from it, and the horror on their faces when we told them the story of what actually happened. And they're looking at us thinking, did you actually go through something like that? And how did you survive it? So they've got questions to ask. So these are conversations we need to continue with the younger generation to continue to raise that awareness and having people to take over from us in the future. So yeah, I'm glad and thank you very much for this platform, Cicely. And I hope we continue to have this conversation going on. And thank you very much to all the men and continue to drive this forward and get other men involved as well. Thank you.
Wonderful, Justina. Yes, we really need more men as we are continuing to build that platform or that forum because there is no time for inaction. So thank you for continuing that campaign. So I'm very curious. I mean, our time is coming to an end. But I really want us to have as much as we can. We cannot have both, but for the time we have, please make use of the chat. There is a lot of useful information shared there. And at some point, I'll bring in Sharon Getao. She has mentioned something about domestic abuse. I'll bring her in, but for now, I will bring Alice in for a minute, and then Lillian, and then James and Sharon. Alice, for a minute, please.
Hi, thanks for bringing this to the limelight, Cecil, and much appreciated, very much. I think the other FGM, which is normally not in the mainstream a lot, is the one that happens in Southern Africa, which is to do with the Libya. It's not talked much, it's not in the mainstream as such, so it hasn't been very much highlighted. And I grew up in Bulawayo, and they call it in our language Amalebe. In Shona, it's called Matinje. And women were expected to do it up to today because many men also feel that there's this ideology that if a woman doesn't have it's like they don't have a door. It's like a vagina without a door. So these kind of stereotypes continue within the sector, and also women are obliged to continuously do that and think about, oh, if I don't have it, I'm not going to get married, or if or the price of the lobola doesn't go up as such if I don't. And this still happens up to now. So one of those things that needs to be brought into the mainstream discussion is about the longevity of the Libya, which is important.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so the other types of, FGM, I think we concentrate so much on the cutting, and as we saw on the video clip, and as you have highlighted, Alice, there are so many other, there are a few other types, and they are all abuse. So Lillian, any comment, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on the point which Anthony mentioned, the point of education. That is very important, people to be educated, to know why they are doing what they are doing. Because nowadays I like it to speak it to my mom, to ask her questions that, there are some things that we went through in our life. And then we don't have answers. So I remember particularly on this, I asked her, why, mommy, did you decide to do what you did to us, me and my little sister? And the answer she gave to me, really, I was so much disappointed. She just told me that because everyone was doing it, and just because everyone was doing it, then you went ahead and do it to us without knowing why those people, they are doing it. So I think it's very, very important, people to seek, to ask the questions, why are we doing what we are doing? So then you find the answer, but if you don't, you just do as other people are doing it, it doesn't make sense. And I was telling my mom, do you know what I'm going through right now in my life, in my marriage? Do you know what my husband has to, to bear with me with what I'm going through? And she was like, yeah, I understand, but everyone was doing. So honestly, it doesn't really, really help. So people should go back, and search for those questions before you act. Ask yourself why you are doing what you are doing. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Lillian. And I'm aware also that those are some of the very difficult conversations you can have with your parents, let alone your seniors. But it's about being brave and asking those difficult questions so that you can share them, or you can pass on what you get to your, to your children or to the other women around you. So yes, education will be key to this. Yeah, I see Ifra's hands up, but Shalon, I'm still very keen to hear from you about domestic abuse. If you're still there, but Afra, your hand is up, please come in.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. My name is Ifra Mohammed, and I am from Slough. Our charter name is Slough Integration Service. And I've been invited this beautiful, absolutely inspiration meeting by Audrey Carter. I think she's in it. And thank you, Audrey. The reason I put my hands up, I was late anyway to join it because I was delivering an FGM training today in Slough. And the reason I put my hands up is that, first of all, this FGM program personally and my personal experience, it touched me, and I have been experienced as well as my country. I'm from Somalia, and Somalia is the highest country that practice FGM. Therefore, me and my colleague, we started campaigning about FGM in Slough, and it really, really going well. At the moment, we're doing some trainings, educating to the people back home, because even if it's not happening in here, there is a lot of pressure coming from back home, the elders and the community leaders. Therefore, we've been trying to empower the women, especially when they go back home, and to give them the knowledge to say no about FGM. Fortunately, we started a new program in 2018 that is going very well, which was when we give the training for the ladies when they're going back to, especially in summer holiday. When we give into the training, and at the end of the training, we give to hand certificates, which inspire them and give them a voice and give them a power to say no. We have a lot of feedbacks after they come back, how that certificate, that piece of paper helped them, how they represented themselves, that they has been educated in a health wise, in a law in the UK, and the benefits of FGM, which is absolutely nothing at all. Therefore, since then we continued. So far at the moment, we deliver 125 participated, and we give a certificate for all of them. And each one of them, when we give them, they're either going back to this year or next year, the home. And each one of them, they come back with a great feedback and quite similar. And all of them, they say, I have the courage to say no. I have the courage to show the people of the community, my parents, my grandparents, that what is the consequences of the UK's law, number one, and number two, the health problem that we've been facing every single day. Therefore, we don't want to put our daughters in the same problems. And the other thing is that the elders, that they didn't know, but after the women pointed out, they understand is that this is not about a religion, because in back home, most of the elder people, they think that they are following our religion, which is the Muslim Islam, and it has nothing to do about FGM Islam. Therefore, it helped them, explain to them, and they show them the certificate that they have. I know the time is quite limited, and I have an enormous experience to share, and I'm really sorry that I came late, but I'm going to conclude my certificate and how does it affect it.
Leave your contacts there.
Yes, yeah, I see that. And how it helped the community. And the certificate, it was supposed to copyright in our community, but I really wanted to share the beautiful people today came together, and I'm so proud to see men and women hand in hand helping to our younger girls and our back home to stop FGM. And I really wish to live longer and see when is FGM ending in back Africa. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Ifra. Please do leave your contacts with us and reach out. Yeah, we need that education more than ever before.
To me, that the next generation will demand and will change.
So Shalon, are you okay to tell us just within a minute on the area of domestic abuse and FGM, and then James will give us the takeaways to do with mental health.
Yes, so thank you very much for inviting us, Cecily. I've got my social work students here. The chat's going live of how much they've learned. I think one of the things that we talk about when we talk about domestic violence, so I am a domestic violence advocate, and I'm also a domestic violence trainer. Domestic FGM is actually considered as part of coercive control in terms of abuse. It is a form of not only physical abuse, it is a form of emotional abuse, it is a form of control, and should be looked at that way. It is not only coming from the misogynistic men who want to control women, it's coming from cultures who label women. This is a place for women. This is where you fit in. It is as that sort of abuse. In the current UK laws, it is recognized as coercive control. It is also recognized as child abuse in cases where children are done to FGM when they're young. That's a form of child abuse, because even to you as a normal husband, wife, as a normal child, nobody should do things on anybody's body without the age of them being able to consent. It's coming down to nobody should even pierce children's ears if they've not said they want it. You should allow them to get up and make that decision. So FGM is a form of coercive control. It is a form of physical abuse, and largely it is a form of trauma abuse. The psychological effects of domestic violence are so cruel. So I do something called trauma therapy, trauma-informed practice. I'm a trauma-informed therapist, and it is as par, and it is almost, it's sexual violation. And it's sad that we put a lot of emphasis on rape in terms of abuse, but domestic violence is cultural rape, because you're mutilating a woman's sexuality. You're not giving her a say. You're putting her in a position where you're taking her sexuality away, not for a day, for a life. It is considered as what you call emotional rape for a woman. And the impact of emotional rape on a woman is very hard. They go through the same psychological effects as a woman who's been raped. Every time she has to think about sex, she's anxious about her body, she's anxious about the pain, it's very psychological. Intimacy becomes a problem. Intimacy becomes an emotional problem. And I know a lot of women who've gone through FGM have got to go through the same program that women who've gone through rape and sexual abuse have got to go through. So you can imagine the impact this is having not only on our women, what impact is it having on the children who are mutilated when they're young? What impact is it having on this person being a whole human being? It impacts their day-to-day life. It impacts how they act, their self-esteem. Their self-esteem sometimes has to be done a lot of work. How they become a mother, how they become a child, where can my child go? I don't want my child to go to somebody's house for a playtime because I don't know what's going to happen. So it's largely having such a large impact, and therefore should be seen really as a problem and a hard thing. I like what Anthony said about cultural competence. One of the things we're going out to the communities to do, one of the big piece of work I'm doing with organizations, is going into communities and making them culturally competent. You cannot work without the people in the community. You can't make that change you yourself. And it's going into groups and talking to faith people, talking to clients, and really teaching people something we're calling cultural competence. And it starts from cultural competence. This platform is a big cultural competence, Cecily. This platform has given people live experiences. How do we go out to those communities and really educate these communities that if you think biblically rape is wrong, faith, religious-wise, rape is wrong, domestic violence is emotional rape for women. So when we are holding men accountable for rape, are we holding our communities accountable for sexually abusing women? At what age and at what stage is what I'm going to say. And when you take that seriousness, when I've gone in and done sessions like that, I've had faith groups say, I never looked at it like that. And they've been so shocked, and we are seeing change.
Thank you.
You very much, sister.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And I know at some point we'll really have to bring you into this community, because I know you do a lot of empowerment programs, which we all need. We need to be empowered to have that voice to make the difference that we are all aspiring or wanting to do. So I will apologize for the time. We should be finishing in a minute, but I'm very keen that we hear from James. So if I ask that we extend with 5 minutes, please, let's do so. James, if you are okay to come in for 5 minutes and then we'll be done, Esther will finish for us. Over to you, James.
Good afternoon, everybody. As a man, it's always an opportunity to talk about FGM because, like everybody has said, it's so difficult for us and to talk about these things. And I totally agree, because there's no cultural rationale behind FGM, because it's like the story of the God. Even God must have been crazy. For those who have watched a movie which was took place in some part in South Africa, an helicopter was flying over and dropped a Coke bottle, and then the community took this bottle and they used it for tools, and everybody was using this Coke bottle to do everything, cook, cut, do whatever, you name it. And it became their calamity because it began to destroy them, to separate them, to cause problem to them. They didn't know where this bottle came from. So that's why they say God must have been crazy to send this bottle for us because it came from the sky. So that's just something to enter into my takeaway. I've already sent a message that my takeaway from this really, there are two folds: appropriate education and appropriate information, because sometimes when we pass knowledge to people, it's not appropriate, so it's not educating them properly. And the knowledge that we pass to them is not really empowering them or freeing them from the bondage, because what we hear this afternoon, that FGM has caused a lot of problem to both women and men as well. So I'm just looking at some psychological implication here. I mean, some of the things that we go through, really, there's always some kind of impact on women and men also. But women do go through a lot of issues, you know, and some of the expression of the psychological implication are very subtle. They are very hidden. They don't talk about it, you know. And if you look at for young women or young guys who have gone to FGM, they kind of struggle a lot at school. Their standard in their education become very poor. There are a lot of high absenteeism because they are not around. They are completely distracted, poor concentration, and loss of interest. So if you look at that, it's quite a huge price to pay just for an activity that nobody really wants to have. And also, studies have indicated that for women who have gone through FGM, we normally risk of having to go to cesarean section if they want to deliver, and they also need to stay in hospital longer than people who have not gone through it. And I can understand how that might be very difficult for women. And they also run risk of postpartum, that's like hemorrhage or even depression after having a child in the hospital or wherever you have it, even in the African context. So this medical condition, we without a doubt leave significant psychological scar on the women and family and husband and partners as a whole, and even a community as well, because for us Africans, when you are not well, is the whole community is sick, you know, and you can imagine how difficult the whole community can be. And we also do understand from some literature I have learned that eating disorders, sleep problems, mood swings, and you can also have some mental health problems as well in terms of the competence, in terms of you able to make decisions for yourself, do things. Because the lady was talking about being abused, because if your morality has been completely taken away from you competently, you're going to be performing less than people who have not gone through the FGM. So that will be quite significant in terms of how it affects women. And we also look at PTSD. And I have come across a lot of women who have had FGM, they have PTSD, but they don't really know where that symptom is coming from. But when you look at it, when you dig up their story, when they tell you their story, you begin to understand that FGM can leave scar on women, and that could interpret itself into PTSD. And that could be something that we need to be aware of. And somebody mentioned about anxiety, fear, shame, and unexplained depression. Sometimes people don't even know why they are so sad, why things are happening to them. That could be because of FGM. And we can also look at how your confidence, your self-esteem, and a lack of self-belief can also be associated with FGM. And if we look at some of the other issues people have said about, we need to be very open about these things, because when we talk about FGM, there's so many other attitudes towards the tradition. We think it's a tradition and it's a value. I mean, the Western value are coming to eradicate or to take a value from us, but there's nothing to suggest, because I don't think there's any substance to it in terms of adding any value to our culture or our tradition, but people think it is. And that's the reason why we've been hearing a lot of people suggesting maybe it's cultural, maybe it's religious, there's a religious background to it, or taste to it, or flavor to it, but there's nothing like that at all. So we need to understand that and take away the tradition and the culture away from it, because there's nothing to suggest that that's the case. But we need to educate our people appropriately. We need to pass on information that is appropriate. Otherwise, we will not be able to get it around. And this often leaves individuals who have this inner turmoil. You know, if I'm a member of FGM, maybe the stigma, Anthony was talking about is so high, when you're not a member, when you're in a village setting, that all of these women are members, but you are not. You become the talk of the village, So all those village tabloids are talking about you. You're always the headline, you're the one that's grabbing men and all the rest of it. So we need to be really, really open about all of these things. That's what I'm saying. The appropriate education and knowledge and information that we pass on to people can be really, really important. But there's a whole lot of psychological implication when you go to FGM for both the woman and the man as well. Some people were talking about sexuality in terms of intimacy and all of those things. I have evidence to suggest in this country where we are that people came all the way from Africa, really united, everything going okay, but marriages have actually gone completely shattered because of lack of intimacy. And this lack of intimacy is to do with FGM. So if your wife is not maybe responsive, there's no drive, there's nothing, and you as a man, you have the drive and she's not having the drive. So you begin to think of so many things that maybe she's seeing somebody or there's something wrong and all the rest of it. So that's the reason why it's really important to talk about all of these things openly. So there whole lot of psychological effect, medical effect, and all other social effect as well, because the stigma, there's also the implication of stigma as well in terms of what happened after you have left the bush and what happened to you when you are part of a society. So you're either fully a fledged member of the society or you're an outcast. So let's really be open about some of these things, but these are the information we need to give back to our people back home and also our children here. So just to cut it short, I was giving 5 minutes, but it's gone. It's now 7 minutes. I really want to thank everybody. And this conversation we need to really cherish and take forward, because it's difficult, but I think we can do it, because I can see I can sense the enthusiasm in this forum today, even the men and the women and the young people among us. We are very, very, very moved. And I think we are very ready to move and to really eradicate this practice. Thank you, everybody, and have a lovely week. Bye-bye.
James, thank you. Thank you so much, James, for that. Really, what I can say is that there is no time for inaction. We are now FGM well informed, yeah? And so we can say 100%, but of course there is always room for improvement. So let's keep the conversations going, because that is the only way we are going to be more aware and let those around us aware of it. So I'll bring Esther in to end for us, and only to wish you a really good weekend, but go out there and educate others.
Thank you so much. I know we have gone past our time. I just want to say thank you to everyone, all the presenters, those who have shared their experiences through verbal and through the chat. And I can only just conclude with what Nisha Sharma has actually put very powerfully in the chat by giving a commitment that she will raise awareness on FGM. And she says she will play her part wherever possible, workplace, family. And she says education is important and key in ending this FGM. And she says we need to work together with hospital, GPs, healthcare workers, social services, community groups. And I just want to challenge all of us that we need to commit. This is a real commitment. Each and every one of us has to act for us to end FGM. So we just want to wish you well in your communities as you advocate against this harmful practice. And we hope to meet next week on Thursday, same time. Thank you everyone for attending.